A full frame camera with a flip screen and great autofocus? Dang, what magic do we have here? Oh wait, it's the Canon 6D Mark II. But wait, is it actually pretty good? Let's find out. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. So it seems like every time we've got a Canon camera in here, it's like the internet has lambasted it, tore it to shreds, and says how terrible it is. But after using it for a few weeks, I can't say I agree. I've actually found it to be an intuitive, super easy to use, decent image quality camera. But before we get too far into the video, I'd like to thank my friends over at B&H Photo for sending this to me on loan. If you'd like to get one of your very own, because TLDW, too long didn't watch, I think that's the expression, it's probably the easiest camera to use ever. It's the easiest camera I've ever used, so there will be links in the description below. Without too much further ado, let's just get into it. And again, really quickly here at the beginning, if you've never seen one of my videos, welcome. But quick disclaimer, I'm not a photographer, nor am I a professional videographer. I make home videos and I make these YouTube videos, so those are the specs and features we'll be talking about today. And to break those specs and features down a little farther, there are 4 main areas that I cover to see if a camera would be well suited to a fellow content creator or for those looking to start out. And those are video quality, ease of use breaks down into 2 further parts, and the overall upgrade path / ecosystem of the camera. And since we said it, first up, video quality. Now, video quality does break down into image quality and audio. So let's touch on a few of the key specs to bring us all up to speed on what this bad boy can theoretically do. The Canon 6D Mark II has a 26.2 megapixel full frame CMOS sensor. It comes equipped with Canon's Digic 7 image processor. And one of the very big benefits is it has Canon's class leading dual pixel autofocus. It can record in up to 1080p at 60 frames per second. Ugh. That one hurt to say. And for super ease of use, it has a fully articulating touchscreen. Look at that. Look at that, it's fully articulating touchscreen with great autofocus. But yes, that's a big hurdle you have to overcome if you are curious about getting into the 6D. It can only record in up to 1080p, and that's tough, especially since this is an expensive camera. I mean, it's $1,500 for just the body, and only ending up with 1080p is a big stretch in 2019. But that 1080p actually looks pretty good, and honestly, if you are making online videos of any kind, most people continue to watch these in at best 1080p. My phone doesn't even have a 1080p display, so if I'm watching your video, I won't even see it in as much quality as this camera can produce, and my phone is a newer one. It's the iPhone XR for those that are curious. Now, I'm not here to tout the regal and slightly nebulous Canon color science as a reason to get the camera, but the images that the 6D produces, they look pretty darn good, and that's without really needing to conduct any post-processing. I mean, I don't do that anyway. So believe in the color science or don't, but for me, I think the image quality coming out of this thing is actually pretty good. And while the internet is angry at it, I think it's perfectly fine as a usable online video camera. The real big video quality benefit on the 6D Mark II is something that only Canon cameras have, and that's the dual pixel autofocus. Now, this does kind of straddle the line between ease of use and video quality, but to bring it here for video quality, if your video is not in focus, it doesn't matter what the resolution is. You can shoot in 8K, 4K, 6K, 1080p, 2K, whatever. If it's not in focus, that's a wasted shot unless it's some kind of artistic thing that it's not supposed to be in focus. But the dual pixel autofocus is such a trustworthy system that I rely on it for video quality. You get legit face tracking that just works. Now, maybe that sounds like an easy hurdle to clear, but Canon is still the only main players here. Even the Sony a7 III, which is kind of like the king of full frame cameras at this price point, has limited uses for its face tracking in 1080p and 4K. So I really want to stress that Canon is really ruling the roost here on making sure that you can trust your video is in great hands while you only need to worry about creating your content. You don't have to worry about the camera. But don't take my word for it, let's hop outside for the video / vlogging test. And the vlogging test with the Canon 6D Mark II begins. Turn it on. Again, we've got it preset because who likes wasting time? Not this guy, and I don't like wasting yours. So let's get the vlogging test going. Man, this thing's way bigger than the cameras I normally use. Look at this big honking thing. Okay, recording. Vlogging test, begin. Whoa. Okay, so here we are doing the vlogging test of the Canon 6D Mark II. Now, this camera gets a lot of crap in the online camera sphere, but just in the last like few days, I've had this thing for about 2 weeks now, just messing around with it, and I actually really like it a lot. We talk about, or at least I talk about, how ease of use is the most important thing for me when it comes to camera gear. So like flip screen, autofocus, stabilization, stuff like that. Now this does not have really good stabilization. We're using the 24-105 kit lens that does have stabilization built into it, but overall it does not have any it doesn't have any in-body image stabilization. But everything else, from like the ease of use to the workflow to like right now, I can see the audio, I can see that I'm in focus, I can see the framing and everything. That's impressive. Now, would I use this lens specifically if I was going to use this to vlog with? Absolutely not. This lens is way too big and it's way too heavy, but I am starting to really like this a lot, actually. I think the image quality is really good. We'll have to check the audio quality. This is the first time I'm really using it to test with vlogging, but I really like the image quality. We've been using this for a few videos in the last couple of weeks, but yeah, vlogging test, the darn thing's pretty heavy. Look at this darn thing. This is a huge setup right here, but if it has good quality, if it has good quality and it's usable, then I guess size doesn't necessarily matter. I mean, look, I use a GH5, which is a huge camera. The OMD EM1, the Olympus EM1X that just came out, looks like a fantastic vlogging camera, and it looks heavy as heck too, but it's got a flip screen stabilization, great autofocus. We'll be checking that out soon. But yeah, this has just been me wandering around doing a vlogging test of the Canon 6D Mark II. Back to the video. And this is the indoor/studio test of the Canon 6D Mark II. Now, this is not the f4 kit lens we were using earlier in the video. This is the Canon 50mm 1.8 to try to simulate what we were just doing with the GH5 with its 25mm, which should be roughly the same equivalent focal length. So everything should be roughly the same, except the background's probably going to be a little blurrier because f1.8 on a full frame camera is going to look way different than f1.7 on a micro four thirds camera, but this is the image quality you can expect to get, which is probably pretty darn good. Just from what I can see on the flip screen right now, it looks pretty good. I've got it set to 1.8, 60 shutter speed because we're doing 1080p 30. The ISO is set to auto. The audio you're hearing is through the Rode VideoMic Pro Plus, wrapped all the way around. But this looks, from what I can't wait to see this on the computer when we start to edit it, because right now from the screen it looks darn gorgeous, and it's gonna make me want to get another Canon camera. But anyway, this is the indoor video quality. Having a full frame camera gives you really big benefits when it comes to doing stuff indoors. And generally when I bring in cameras here, like when we do an action camera or something like that, I'm like, hey, you gotta make sacrifices for the good image quality. This should not have to sacrifice anything. This should look fantastic, and from what it does, it really looks pretty good. From what I can see, again, you're seeing this live, I'm seeing this through a screen, but this has been the indoor video test. If you'd like to get your very own Canon 6D Mark II, and oh, it looks good. Looks good. All right, back to the video. And we're back. But getting decent image quality is only about a third of the game. The biggest and most important part of the game for me is how easy is that quality to get. Honestly, cameras are so good these days that for me, image quality is not the most important part, but functionality is what matters the most. And the 6D Mark II doesn't disappoint. Much like the 80D we covered a few months ago, this thing is the definition of simple and easy to use. It's got a really intuitive and easy to navigate menu system that is enhanced by being able to touch the menu system and select the items you want from behind and in front of the camera. But it's also got a nice array of physical buttons and dials. Yes, they're not as customizable as I'd like, but there are enough of them that it's really easy to set the camera up however you want. Like, you can use each of these buttons to set up the exposure pretty darn easily. And something that aids in that we'll continue talking about in the next subsection is the fully articulating screen. One of the major benefits this gives you, much like the GH5, is you can frame yourself, check your exposure, and double check your audio all from in front of the camera without needing anything external. But you can actually change the settings of the camera while in front of it from this screen. That is dead useful, and something that Sony cameras, while having the technically better recording abilities, they can't do or touch. Like, this ability is incredible, because being able to change it without messing around and getting up and going behind the camera or something like that, that is incredibly important. Setting up the camera is important, but when it comes down to it, there's a time for business. And once you hit that record button, it's actually back here, and once you hit that record button, it becomes business time. So what is business time? Business time is after you hit record. How easy or hard is it to get the image quality you want out of the camera? And the 60 Mark II, much like Canon's other cameras, it is a monster at business time. We already talked about it during the vlogging test. It's got fantastic dual pixel autofocus. It's got really good image quality. This lens is gigantic, so don't use this lens. I mean, this thing is the huge honkin' kit lens. I would get a wider angle lens that's smaller than this. But it is so easy to use after you hit record. So I really like the Canon M50. If you watch this channel, you know I've been talking about it for a long time as a really great beginner's budget entry camera. But one of the things that I don't like is you can't see your audio levels from the touchscreen unless you give up the video quality, because you can set it to a menu that'll show you it, but you lose like the you seeing yourself part. But the 60 Mark II, shows your audio levels from the screen while you can see yourself and frame yourself. Like, that's incredibly useful. Combine that with the autofocus and the image quality, like this is less fiddly to use than the M50, except that this is just much bigger. If you don't mind a bigger camera, this is basically like the 80D grown up. But if you don't mind a bigger camera, this is not that bad. The problem we'll run into, as we've already mentioned, is the price. The M50 is what, like 600 bucks? This is at least twice that, more than that if you get the kit lens too. So it's super easy to use after you hit record, and it's freezing out here, so let's head back inside. Back to the video. So much jumping around, man, am I right? The video quality is good, it's pretty darn easy to get, but what does the upgrade path I like doing slashes, ecosystem look like? Well, if you hadn't noticed, I've said the word Canon a whole bunch. This is a Canon full frame camera, so it can use all of the full frame EF lenses out there, and there are a metric crop ton, get it? That's a camera joke about crop factors, of lenses out there. First party, third party, used, new, refurbished. This is the largest lens selection on the planet, so there is no problem upgrading glass to enhance your recording experience. And some of these lenses can be had at very reasonable prices, which is another big benefit of this system. Unlike some of the newer mirrorless systems, there is a whole range of existing lenses that can be had at very budget-friendly prices. Canon has a whole website to selling refurbished lenses. I mean, that's incredible. So what, right? So should you get a Canon 6D Mark II? This is a tough one because on the one hand, the 6D Mark II is hands down the easiest to use camera I've ever gotten my hands on. Within seconds, you can be up recording, getting fantastic video quality with darn near zero fiddling. And like I said in the video, that's the most important thing to me, right? So video over, yes, get one because it's the easiest. The real problem is it's a $1,500 camera that only gives you 1080p, and this is 2019. I mean, you can get the M50 for less than half of the price and get very similar video quality. True, it's not gonna be full frame, but is that blurry background worth double the cost? For some of us, maybe, but for me, I mean, not as much. Plus, for $1,500, you could get a GH5, a Fuji X-T3, or a G9. Like, there are other cameras out there that have better image quality and features that are theoretically a better value. But I cannot overstate how easy the 6D is to use. If you just want a camera that gets out of your way and lets you make videos without having to, it melds away and just becomes part of you and your creation experience, then I would absolutely recommend the 6D Mark II. It really is a misunderstood gem. And gems are expensive, right? Thanks for watching.